we are. Oh my gosh.
Hey,
Kay
everybody.
Richburg, what happened to my thread snips?
I don't know. They're gone. I'll have to
Seriously.
find some for you.
Seriously.
Well, let's say good morning and then
Good morning, everybody.
we'll
How
get
are
it
you
going.
today?
Alrighty. We're good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
All right.
I'm excited to be back down here in town.
That's right.
You know.
Back for Facebook Live as always.
Absolutely.
Yay.
You know,
All right.
all good fun.
Well, we are going to have a really fun day with these lantern earrings. They're going to be really fun to make. And you have, as we're looking, a fantastic chart
Oh yeah.
that I'm going
Brand
to
new
find
chart.
and put up on the group. And it'll also be in the episode notes as well. So you'll find it. Yes, I am
Can I
wearing...
say how much I love that?
Right? It was fun.
It was really fun.
This-
I watched you.
The carrier bead
Yeah.
cuff.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was very vintagey. I loved making it. I think you guys loved making it, which is great.
I hope so. I mean, I thought that those carrier beads really spurred a lot of thoughts in my brain. Not just about carrier beads, but about other two-hole beads,
Mm-hmm.
and just some things that I don't know. It gave me some
Some ideas.
ideas.
Yeah,
I
love
like a
carrier
lot of
beads.
ideas.
I love them.
You know.
And we've got some great colors in, and we're going to be adding, since they were so popular, I think we're going to be adding more of those. But if you missed this broadcast, it's the Free Tip Friday from this past week,
Last week.
which was good. I'll just put my,
Oh.
just put my thing here.
Oh yeah. Hold
There
it.
we
Hold
are.
it.
Hold it.
Hold that. Hold
Well,
that
it's
pose.
Kate and Emily in front of the camera today, and we've got Janice doing some moderating and stuff. Behind the camera is Janice, and then our fun moderator all the way from Denmark. We've
Hi
got
Gita. How are
on
you?
sbeadshop.com, and of course Brandon, as always, is behind the camera doing our filming and taking photos. So it is a group effort always with Facebook
It's always
Live.
a group effort
Always,
here.
always.
Yeah.
So
Well, with everything around here.
with everything. That's right. So we thank you so much, as always, for your patronage and your patience and your support of our small business.
Well, I know
Do you
last
know-
week was like
It was crazy.
crazy pants.
Yeah, it was. We've been so busy around here. And I don't know if you guys know, but I'm going to name everybody off here. So there's Kate and Janice and Emily. That's us. We've got Karen, who does our web. So that's 4. We've got...
And photography.
And right, web photography, so much are Karen, so that's 4. Ivan and Cara and Brandon and Myra and Jocelyn in fulfillment and inventory. So
And
what am I up
that's
to?
kinda it.
How many fingers is this?
9.
9. Well, and of course we have Drea, who's
Oh, yes.
on the East Coast. You can't
Yep.
forget our Drea.
No.
Who's on the East Coast doing our doing all of our customer service and our customer happiness. So that's 10 of us, and I just want to say we really appreciate it. Your support and your business, and you're seeing the direct result of your patronage to
Yeah.
us, because your bead spending goes directly to a wonderful small company. So I just wanted to thank you and say a thank you, a heartfelt thank you. Oh, and you know who else I forgot? I forgot Alfie.
Naughty pants.
I know,
Where
the
is
naughty
Naughty
pants.
Pants is
He's
taking a
asleep.
nap.
We are maybe
Because he's
maybe
been super naughty this morning.
he has. Maybe he'll make an appearance at the end. You never know.
You never know if he wakes up.
Yeah, if he wakes up.
Janice, don't forget Alfie.
But he might be naughty. That's right. Well, on that note, we've got a fun, as I say, a fun project coming up. But I also wanted to mention, we have an event, as you guys know, that's coming up. It's our bead retreat in September. And I want to tell you guys, Janice has made
Oh.
the most beautiful logo for this retreat.
So not yeah, it's
She's taken
original
her watercolor to paper, and we're trying to decide what kind of thing we're going to make out of it. We're looking at bags, maybe an apron. Who knows? I don't know, but it's going to be really super fun.
You know, I was thinking
So-
about, you know, how T-shirts are great, but the logo's in the front, where your jewelry should be. And actually, I think if we were to do a shirt, I think we should put it on the back.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Right?
Yeah, back there and have a thing.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do maybe an apron. I don't know. But we're thinking about also doing it on a run of other things. Not
Oh,
only
you know
for
what would
the
be really
retreat.
cool with that? Is to print it on tissue paper.
Oh, it would be.
As
Tissue
wrapping.
paper would be cool.
Wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
if we can. Yeah, I think since it's round logo, it would look really cute
as a
on,
button.
no, on, measuring tapes. It'd be cute.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah.
I don't know. But, so we'll do the reveal.
It's super colorful.
For that.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
so cool. So I'll share it with you when we're a little further down the road. But my point for bringing that up is
Circle around.
I'm circling, I'm landing the plane, Emily Miller. I'm landing the plane. The point is, that we had someone who had to cancel, which is sad.
I
So,
know.
but that means we have one space available. So right now it's July 18th, if I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm
Yep.
looking at the clock. It is 10:40 a.m. I wanted to put that out to you guys. If anyone wants to jump on it, email Drea over at info@beadshop.com. Drea, the first person who emails Drea, and you want, and you'd like to join us, if you go onto our website, it's the Best of Both Worlds Bead Retreat, and all the info is there, and the pricing and stuff as well. So you can check it out. Email Drea, and we'd love to have you join us. So
And is
we've
this
got
a-
one space
Is
there.
this a single or a double room? Double room?
It's a shared
Shared
room.
room,
So
okay.
you'll be sharing with a bead sister,
Mm-hmm.
an unknown bead sister, but after the retreat, you guys will be besties, because everyone who came last year is there again and rooming with the same roommates and stuff. So we're gonna have a really, really great time.
Yeah, and
so if you can join us, it would be awesome.
I love the retreat center. It is very modest, but it's very comfortable.
It's not that modest.
I
It's
think
kind
it's
of-
well, the facility for the retreat center
Yeah.
and the dining room is very nice. The rooms are modest. It's very quiet. There's no car noise. You park your car once. You walk around. You don't have to leave. You can. If
Right.
you want to go to town, you can go to
You
town.
can.
It's not that far.
Yep.
But it's in the hills in California, which at this time of year is
San Juan Bautista, California.
warm, dry,
Beautiful.
beautiful
Lovely.
golden grass.
That's right.
They have a big pond. There's wild turkeys wandering through. It's really a retreat.
It's really beautiful. And Brandon is laughing because she grew up very near there. And so when Emily says it's rural, Brandon laughs and laughs and laughs.
It's a
because
tiny little, it's a lovely tourist town. There are
It
some
is.
really interesting things
Yeah.
there.
One of
Oh,
the
and the
California
mission.
missions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's so
it's-
beautiful. It's,
Growing up.
Yeah, it's about this big.
I grew up in a
Um,
smaller town than you guys grew up in, so come on.
Well, I don't know. Well, it's
You-
close.
how
We
many
all
pe-
grew up in small
How many
towns.
people in your graduating class from high school?
I don't know, 3.
Shut up.
In my entire school, there were 400 students.
Yeah.
My
That was
graduating.
kindergarten to 8th grade.
Yeah.
Well, my high school had four grades. We had about 300 students.
Oh.
There were 72
All right,
people
so-
in my graduating
All
class.
right, so you beat me.
And most of them,
All right.
I'd been there since 5th grade, and I
All
was
right.
still a newcomer.
All right.
Yeah.
You're
So
from the smallest town.
that is more people than was in my 8th grade
You're
graduation.
from the
my 8th grade
smallest
graduation class was like 30 of us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the town. Our
I
town's
went to a
very small.
giant cosmopolitan high school in Manhattan. No, I'm just kidding. So just to let you guys know, so go ahead and email and let us know all about that if you'd like to join us. So if, pardon me, if you have any questions or whatever, just shoot that right over to Drea and she will take care of it. So we're going to jump in on these earrings. What I did want to let you know, you guys, you can watch us all different ways here on Wednesdays and on Friday when I do Free Tip Friday. On Wednesdays, you can watch us live like you are doing here, right on our Facebook page. You can also watch us later on YouTube, which is great. And you can watch us later. Karen embeds it over on our website as well. But I'm also looking into ways of having this stream live in different locations. So that may be coming down the pike. Maybe on our website, maybe on YouTube. I don't know. We're kind of juggling all that around. So, but for now, you'll be able to see us right here on the Facebook page. You can also, I think with YouTube, there's you're not able to add live comments and stuff, but you can add comments over on YouTube. We do check those periodically, so feel free to do that as well.
Just checking the comments, Sydney. Looks like you win.
Yeah, did she have a tiny,
Yeah,
tiny
12.
12? Wow, that's pretty
In
small.
the district.
That's pretty small. That's pretty small. And of course, you can always, on the Monday after the broadcast on Wednesday, you can download those episode notes. And the episode notes are kind of the cliff notes or kind of the learning that goes along with this episode. So I know a lot of you already use the, I was going to say the Cliff Notes, the episode notes. I use the Cliff Notes. Thinking about high school, I'm all, oh yeah,
High
those
school?
Wuthering Heights.
We didn't have any
Those
Cliff
Wuthering
Notes.
Heights Cliff Notes. Those came in handy.
I loved Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, I did too, but the Cliff Notes, what's the theme? I don't know what the
Jane
theme
Eyre was
is.
really my favorite, though.
So you can download them there, and it's a great companion. It also tells you, Drea puts in the minute markers on the specific highlights of the learning, like especially when the learning starts, which is usually about 15 minutes in, which
'Cause
is
we are
about
chitty-chatty.
right now.
Very
So
close.
yeah, if you do watch us on the video and you kind of want to skip our, I don't know, our bon ami, you can.
I kind of think of this as the warm-up.
It is the warm
It's
up.
kind of getting our jaws
Getting
moving
ready.
and,
Yeah.
you know.
We're in the dugout right now before we
Right,
go out on
right.
the mound.
Right, well, yeah, maybe we're having a little
Right,
throwing back and forth.
right, a little
you know.
little tossing it around.
Yeah.
So you can always scoot forward about 15 minutes, and that's when the learning starts. And speaking of learning starts, let's jump in.
All
We've
right.
got a lot to share. I am wearing these beautiful earrings. I love them, love them, love them.
That's the Shanghai lantern.
The Shanghai lantern.
And then this is the Tokyo lantern.
The Tokyo lantern. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit, Emily, about your inspiration for this design, if you would. And Bran, I'll take these off. You can kind of, maybe you can zoom in on
I'll
these
use
a
my
little bit.
pointer.
I figured
Or,
we'd be
or
coming
do we want to,
It's nice to see them hang,
Hang,
actually.
yeah,
Can we have
okay.
them hanging for a minute?
can we? There you
We
go.
zoomed in.
I
Okay,
took them,
awesome.
I took them off. I'm so sad.
We got pretty close.
Well, you're
I'm
going to
so
have some more,
sad.
don't worry.
I know, I
You're
love
going to get
them.
them.
I know, I'm gonna make these. Oh yeah, there they are. Let me get my glasses out of the way.
So, one of my inspirations for these was I like brick stitch, and I like using brick stitch to make an earring. It's a very traditional Native American sort of style of
Mhm.
working. To have this brick stitch earring where you have the pyramid based off the row, and then below usually fringe.
Fringe, right.
And that was the inspiration for my brick stitch bracelet.
Mhm.
I've been seeing
Right,
a few.
like brick stitch bracelet. You know what? I'm gonna go grab that while you
Okay.
talk about it.
I've been seeing a few of these on the Facebook group lately. Some brick stitch happening, which is very exciting.
Yes, because it is easy.
Yeah, it really is. Brick stitch is. I like it as a stitch because it's easier for patterning. And last week we were here talking about peyote patterning kind of exhaustively. And so when I pattern with brick stitch, it's a little easier to see what's going to happen in the next row and as you go along. So to me the patterning is a little smoother, a little more how do you say a little more normal, or a little bit more just simpler and easier to work along with. But one of the things I don't want you to forget is that you can do seed bead stitches with non-traditional seed beads. And since brick stitch patterning kind of stacks on itself rather than being offset or interwoven like peyote stitch does, we can actually use these different sizes and shapes of seed beads, and it kind of comes out a little bit more naturally, and it moves right along pretty easily. You definitely get the advantage of having some fringe in. And you know, when Janice is encouraging me to pick out some palettes and pick out some projects to work on, one of the things I like to do is look around and see what beads we haven't really used very much yet. These True Twos are a 2mm fire polished
Yes.
bead, and they're really nice to work with. They have a big hole. There are a few irregular ones as you go along in the pack. So
Like any check glass bead
yeah,
might have.
and I always like to have a few spares. So
You used it in this one as well, a True Two.
no, that's a shadow,
not?
and
No.
That's not a True Two. That's a 3mm check.
Is it? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Or a
It looks-
4mm.
You're right, it's a 3mm. I so lied to
Yeah.
you. Sorry.
I know what I'm doing.
I guess,
For-
well, I guess I can't see them. Maybe I should put on my glasses. Put on my glasses.
So using beads we don't often use, True Twos, these new colors of cubes that we've got, which I really adore. And then I also wanted to bring in some gemstone beads. And I really like gemstones, and I really like pearls. In this case, I used some 2mm gemstones at the bottom of the dangle. And this oomphes it up just a little bit, I think. And I love having the fact that they're a little bit irregular in color and sometimes even in size. So there's some slightly lighter, slightly darker, and I like that a whole lot.
Yeah, I think that 2mm, like you say, kind of elevates the design a little bit. And this, you could use that cut cube, the hematite
Sure.
cube, right? anything that's kind of small and flashy.
Mhm.
What I really dig about them is that they do look so, I guess regular, it's not really the right word for it, but they really provide a big contrast.
Right.
Because of the material and the size and shape.
Right. I also brought in some daisy spacers to separate out those melons again
Mhm.
in the fringe. And I tend to keep my fringe a little on the simple side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of conscious about weight overall of an earring.
Mhm.
When it gets to be too big, it's
Mhm.
kind of too heavy and uncomfortable. But the melons also get to star up here. And these earrings went through a number of iterations.
They did. Emily and I talked a lot on the phone about these.
We had I had personal moments of I'm never going to get this head on the desk. It's never going to be quite right. But motoring on through was nice because I did come up with several different versions of them,
Mhm.
which I thought that's a bonus. That's one of the things you can say when you have to make versions of something. It's one of the things you can say that's a bonus is that you get some ideas about the things that you might do.
Right, exactly.
I finished these as this was sort of an early version, an early iteration of them,
Mhm.
and this has no fringe, and I wanted to leave it with no fringe.
Mhm. It's really cool.
And I didn't like the loop at the top for the ear
Mhm.
wire, so in the next version that got changed, it got
Mhm.
smaller.
Do you want to actually move down so we can start
Yeah,
looking
Sure.
because
at this
that
on
one
front?
nobody can really
Yeah.
see the
Oh, 'cause
details.
it's
Yeah,
too
let's move it round
Okay.
because I really I want people to see kind of these side by side.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, Brandon, and hand that over.
There we go. Sorry.
It's all right.
Spin it quite quickly enough, but
It's all right. I just got to remember to grab it from the top, not the bottom.
that's a great angle.
There we go.
Perfect. Is that
can
back
really
far enough?
see. It seems crooked, but other than
I think it
that-
needs to come back to Kate just a little bit more.
There we go.
There we
Is
go.
that a little. There we go.
There you go.
That looks
Yeah. And now we're
good. Okay, great. Got our little camera moving.
Mhm.
Business
Sorry,
thing
guys.
going. I
think
know
we're
it's
back.
a little. All right. Yeah, we're set.
All right. Terrific.
So you can see that'll catch up with you.
Yeah.
So this was that first one that
This
you
was
did.
really the first one, and the big loop at the top didn't move me. I did like working brick stitch with the natural stone beads, the 2mm gemstones. But again, this is something where the gemstones, the holes are a bit variable, even the nicest quality ones that we carry. Pearls might have been a little smoother here, and I could certainly include those if I wanted to. But it was fun to kind of see one without the fringe. And the more I did this, the more I didn't want to add fringe. And Janice said, no, we have to have fringe.
Right. We all
And
wanted friends.
We all wanted fringe. And then the true twos kind of got left by the roadside, so those had to come back in again. So there was a few different versions of these as they motored through. But I kept this because I think I like it.
And how long do we have the tape? Lynn was asking the length of the ones of the fringe. So let's look here. It's about 2 inches, about.
And then the fringe, these ones might be a little shorter actually, because I didn't continue with the patterning
Right, you
down
can see
farther.
it's right here.
It's a little different, yeah. So it's a little shorter. So that's about 1 3/4 inches, and then door to door about 3 inches. Okay. And these also changed in what we were trying to talk about with these a bit. You know, we were much more fringe oriented, and these changed a bit. So it was an interesting design problem as we were working through them. And Kate had to talk me off the ledge a couple times. So it all went well.
Yeah, well, you know, I think one of the things was we were trying to create fringe out the side, and we were trying to do all of this stuff. And I think that the real focal of this piece that makes it so interesting is this shape. You know, like when you just made these guys, we're like, oh my gosh, we love this shape. We love how this shape looks. But it was interesting when you were trying to put fringe like down the sides and stuff. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot when we design jewelry and when we design with beads is not only do we talk about the shape that the piece creates, but the negative space or the shape that the space leaves around it. So when these are laid out like this, you can really see the negative space and how that
Well,
really
and it
catches
definitely
your eye.
it really accentuates it quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And also Janice was saying, like in this one, this lantern one here, she was saying, well, why don't you extend
Yes.
the
And that's only one
those
bead.
out. Yeah, extended out by one bead.
It's only one bead,
Yeah.
which is kind of shocking.
Yeah.
That much of a difference.
But you can see this row of cubes and that row of cubes are also different. And you've also brought in, like with this one's missing the true twos. We put the true twos back in. So, you know, these designs a lot of times go through a lot of different iterations. It would also make, I was thinking, because I have bracelet on my mind, this would make a great centerpiece.
You know, we could do
as a
another loop
bracelet.
here, and then you could have your leather just go underneath and on. And
Oh yeah, you
Yeah.
could just put it right on
Yeah,
leather. Huh?
yeah.
And especially if you did a loop that was a little bit bigger, we could put it on 5mm strap.
Sure.
That would look cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That can happen.
Great.
You know,
All
and
right.
I would also be unafraid of wearing this just as a pendant.
Yeah,
If
it
you-
would be cool as a pendant.
One of the things that's kind of interesting about earrings is, I think knitters call it second sock syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
You get one done and you don't quite get the other one done.
Yes, that's
Somehow
me.
that happens.
What are you talking about me right now? Because
I don't know your life.
that's my
Stay out of my life.
That's right. That's my second sock syndrome for sure.
So you could actually absolutely wear this as a necklace and as a pendant, and it would be very lovely. If you're not an earring wearer, same deal. It would make a lovely little pendant. But yes, you're right. On a bracelet, this would be really cool. So some of the things that kind of were advantageous to all this was the cubes have really large holes. Let me pull one out of here and show you what they look like. They're a bit irregular, but they do have very large holes. So stitching through them multiple times is really easy. The true twos as well have good size holes. And again,
Right,
those
for
are
such a tiny bead.
such a tiny bead. And the bugles are not too bad. Bugles, you want to always be a little bit careful about rubbing your thread against the edge of the bugle. Sometimes that can be a little sharp. And the melons as well, really decent sized holes, so easy to work with for stitching. Sometimes folks get really intimidated by the small beads, and I'll show you again how I like to volcano my beads and pick them up without actually having to look at what I'm doing too carefully. So all these beads were very nice to work with as far as hole size. I did choose an ear wire that has the large size loop. You know, some ear wires have very tiny, dainty loops here, but for going over seed beads, it's really advantageous to have that little
that
bit
nice big
larger loop for sure.
Yeah, and these are the sterling and gold filled ear wires that we carry, and they're a pretty ear wire. I'm going to put this other one next to it, Em, so people can
Sure.
kind of see the colorway. So let's talk about the beads that we use in these, shall we? You've got your list over there.
Absolutely.
And so we're calling this the lantern earrings, and we called one. This is
Shanghai.
Shanghai lantern, and this one's Tokyo,
Tokyo.
lantern. And you can find the listing for all of the ingredients list. You go right to beadshop.com, right there on the Facebook Live page. They're both listed. And I'll bring these into frame just real quick. I wanted to show you guys. Emily was talking about the brick stitch bracelets. These were from a Facebook Live a little ways back. And you can find these guys as well. But I just thought I would show you how that evolution of that brick stitch triangle kind of evolved
that pyramid into a diamond.
into this brick stitch diamond, which is kind of cool. I think this is cool. But yeah, so that's that. So this one is, as we said, Tokyo lantern, and this one is Shanghai lantern, which I love. I love both of them. All right, so
in my prep for today, I did make pieces to kind of a stopping point for both of us. I know. You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm super excited.
Kate really has just been going on about this particular earring and really liking
I
it.
love this earring.
And I thought she deserved a set of her own. So she just has to now you just have to finish them. So
Okay, I'll do my best.
okay, I know you will.
I'll do my
And
best.
you always do your best. Come on.
Well,
So I do want to just go over brick stitch again, just briefly, and then I'm going to show you by working on the bottom side of this pyramid what happens when we're using an irregular sort of size of seed bead, and we have to make it match up with the row before, right? It's peyote stitch, it would wow in and out. Brick stitch, we have the advantage of it being a pyramid, and it's a little easier to manipulate.
So do you want to talk about your chart real quick?
Oh yeah.
Let's look at that. Maybe if
I
we
forgot.
see, because I just linked it. I just linked it to in the comments here. We'll also have it linked in our episode notes on Monday, and I'm also going to add it right now onto in the bead table bead group. Okay.
So I do like to make charts for people to follow. Sometimes I realize that it would be hard to do what we were doing online live or even watching it in replay. So it would be difficult to kind of track that information. So what we have is our lantern earring, and this is the top portion that you would complete, and then the fringe portions on the other side. Okay, and I have a couple little tricks to show you, like I always do.
I like a trick.
I like a trick too. And if you read along with me down here at the bottom, it says start with 1.5 yards of thread, and it's KO thread waxed. What we're going to do, instead of a stop bead, because brick stitch kind of creates its own stopper initially, is actually work from the center of the thread. And when we work from the center, we have the other half of the thread to use later, which is what we'll do when building one pyramid like this, and we'll turn around and use the other half of the thread here. We'll add a second thread for the fringe so that it's all on one thread. And if the fringe happens to break, it's a little more, catchable. We don't have to worry about it, the integrity of this portion. Okay. So the center row, or the base row, is the ladder of cubes, and it's 7 cubes across, 7 ladders across. Row number 1, then, sitting on top of that base row, is 3 bead stacks. We've done this before with the 11s. Okay.
And that's just all brick stitch.
Just all brick stitch.
Right. Going
But
around.
you know what you might notice here is I have 7 beads here, but I
And
have
more rows
9
up there.
stacks here. So each of these beads is going to have a loop of thread in between doing this. So we can actually put more than one stack attached to each loop. So that's a little different than what we would normally do.
Okay.
And doing that, we just even them out, and I usually have the last loop with just 1 stack on it, and that seems to work out pretty nice and even.
Okay.
If you're a little off left or right, it's not really going to make too much of a difference. When you go up to the next row, this is the row with the 2 true beads, and these are in 2 bead stacks. And this one, I just simply used each loop of thread between the previous row stacks to attach. Okay, and again with the bugles, same thing. Just straight ahead. So each of these rows, as they're going up the pyramid, getting smaller by 1 bead. Okay. When we reach rows 4 and 5, we're doing it with 3mm melons. So again, now I have 7 here, but I only have 3 beads here. So I'm spreading out how I'm using the thread loops in that next row. Okay. And in the next row above that, row 5, that's just the same. Okay. When we're finished with that stack, we put 3 beads on in a picot, bring that thread down here and bury it.
Wind it back.
And then there'll be a thread hanging out here, the other half of our thread, and we'll use that to flip this
do our
around into
bottom.
the bottom part. Okay.
So, do you want to show us how we jump in and
I
get
wanted
started?
to start with a ladder and show you what that looks like.
Okay.
And then I have, I can go ahead and do a traditional brick stitch or 2 for you. So I continue to bring my tile beads, these glass beads with me.
Right, that we used last week.
Because I think they're easier to see. And I hope everybody agreed with me last time. I didn't hear screams of agony. I can't see what's going on. So I'm making a grand assumption. And I'm going to work with a light colored bead and a dark colored thread, so it's a little easier to see. So with a brick stitch ladder, we're going to pick up 2 beads at once. We're going to slide it down the thread.
And this is this middle row.
That's that
right?
ladder, the ladder base row.
Is what you're calling.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm going to go through bead number 1 again. So I picked up 2, and I'm going to pass through number 1 again. And as I do that, it pulls it around and makes it sit next to bead number 2. 1 and 2 together. Then I'm going to pass down through 2 and pick up another bead. I'm going to go through 2 again. Pull it up tight. And up again through 3. So what's happening here is these loops of thread are linking these beads together.
Mm-hmm.
And I
get a little tighter in that. Brandon?
want them to be
Okay, good.
side by
Oh,
side
did you? Okay, I see it.
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great.
in a little stack. They call this a ladder because it has those rungs. So brick stitch is unusual. There are a few stitches in the seed bead ovier that are not that are thread looped on thread, and these are mostly stitches that come from Africa in origin. But brick stitch was used in ancient Egypt, and Native Americans adopted it when it was brought to when glass beads and needles, metal needles, were brought to the Americas, and it's a very popular stitch actually. So it's been around the world a bit. And it's okay, as usual, if your first row looks a little
funny.
loosey-goosey,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to fix that in a moment. Okay. Wrap around and go through one more time. So now, I think I did 7. I did
7.
7.
We're on it with 7.
Well, I just thought that it would be the same as the other,
Yeah.
so it would look the
Looks
same.
good.
Yeah. So 7 beads in a ladder. Okay. And I'm going to bring my thread back through all of these beads, just stitching up and down till I come out of bead number 1 again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what this does is it gives me a great deal of stability. And of course, these beads have plenty of room in the holes,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't have to worry.
But it just reinforces that center row.
Yeah, makes everything very stable feeling, very different than what it felt like when those first ones were kind of loosey-goosey. So this is also a good illustration of what happens when your thread is too small for the holes of your beads. If this was something not a practice piece or a demonstration piece, I would want to have my thread be much closer in size to the hole of the bead because it would give me some more stability. All right?
Looks great.
How's that?
Looks good.
Everybody?
Yep. Everybody's on it.
We're on board?
Mm-hmm.
So from here on out in brick stitch, we're going to use these loops of thread that come in between each bead as a way to attach the next rows. Okay? And typically in brick stitch, we use for each beginning of each row, we use the second thread loop. So here's the first one, here's the second one, and this is what we're going to do to attach our beads. Now, because we're working maybe with beads of other sizes and we want to have this look a particular way, we might actually use the first thread loop to attach 2 beads, but in this case, most of what we're going to do today is going to be with the second one. Okay? So this is just at the beginning of the row. Okay. So each row begins with 2 beads. I'm going to pick up 2. I'm going to take my needle and pass under the thread loop from the back side, so that's the side away from me.
Skipping that first thread loop.
Skipping that first thread loop. Pull it through. And just in general, I do try to not pierce my thread if I can here. If you do, it's not as critical as at other times, but I try not to. I'm going to bring my needle up through the left-hand bead or the second bead. I'm going to go down through number 1 and catch the loop of thread, the first loop of thread, and back up number 2.
And so you've just put on, I know it's kind of hard to see here, but these tiny seed beads that are there and there, that's what you've just put on.
It is.
Right?
Your sample wasn't. It was so
Okay.
tight in. It
All
wasn't
right.
your
Let's
sample.
see
You
that
might
one
wanna
more time.
Right.
So
say
it's
that again.
this bead and that bead.
In this case, these stacks of 3, even though they're so, I actually put on 6 beads,
Right.
but we're treating
Okay.
that as a
As
group
one
of 3
bead?
as one bead.
Okay.
Right?
So it was these 3 are that green bead, and these 3 are that green bead.
Correct. Yep. So across the row now, as I go, I'm just going to catch each thread loop. So I picked up a bead under the thread loop, pull it up, and up through the bead. All right? Pick up a bead under the thread loop,
And up
through the bead. And just in general, avoid splitting threads if you can. If something happens and you split a thread with brick stitch, it's usually not a deal breaker. But just in general, under the thread loop and up through the bead.
Nice.
And the last thread loop is coming up here. So I naturally have one less bead in my row than
Because it's offset a little bit.
because it's offset a little bit, right?
Cool.
So let's do one more, so you can
And
see
that
that row
row-
again.
That row would be these true rows.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way that this differs from something like right angle weave is you're not
Huge.
going through beads at all. You're only
Well,
going through.
I am going through beads. So I picked up the second
Right.
thread loop.
Well, you're going through beads there, right?
Yep.
But
It's not. It's looped. It's linked. The connection is made through the thread loop,
right,
not the bead.
not the bead.
So it's
right.
different from peyote stitch, different from right angle weave, different from brick stitch, or from loom weaving, different from square stitch, different from
That's why
pretty
I think
much everything.
brick stitch always throws me off a little bit because I'm like, oh, you're catching the loops. We're not.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
many African stitches actually have that that looping on loops rather than going through the bead. Trying to think. Not herringbone. I'll think of the name in a minute. There's another one that's pretty popular. So up through number 2 here, down through number 1, catch that first thread loop, right? This tends to lock that row up a
Right.
little bit and really make the first couple beads of the row sit up correctly on the pyramid.
And you just want your tension to be fairly even. You're just kind of pulling it as it goes, right?
You know, I'm having tension issues here because
The
my
beads are so big.
the beads are so big, but it does make it easier to see. And
But no, your tension looks real even.
yeah, you know, I really make the point a lot of times when we're talking about tension. It's more of a consistency thing than a right or wrong either way. When I was early on to beading, I was very worried about bead thread being too thin and that my piece was going to break and things were going to fall apart. Well, so I used doubled thread for everything, and I had to be super careful not to split my thread. But it made my tension so rigid that my pieces had no drape and no
Right.
flexibility. And so backing down to single thread and waxing my thread really helps a lot to kind of control
To control what's
that
going on.
feeling of it's a little too loose. So on brick stitch, I do flip over, and I have to say that, you know, with peyote and with brick, I kind of hold it in a similar fashion. I work a little bit more vertically than I do horizontally. Although it's always illustrated horizontally, I really kind of tend to work a little more comfortably for myself, and that's just personal preference. Right?
So now we've gone through this base ladder. These 3 seed beads are this blue green bead. The true twos are the blue bead. Now we're going to deal.
We would do bugles.
We would do
be next.
bugles.
Right.
And it would be the same thing?
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could just continue with this same stitch to taper up, taper up, taper up until you get to the top.
So
right?
what's interesting is the longer we make the bead, the more radical our taper begins to happen because it pushes
the
it
longer
out
you make
longer.
the ladder, you mean?
Or
Or
no, the longer we make
oh,
this
the stack. I see.
the skinnier it gets out that way.
Because
So
it's less of a graduated.
right, and it's really kind of fun to play around with that a little bit. You know, we could have put the bugles next, and then the true twos, and then something else. We could have stacked by size if you wanted. Okay.
Melanie said something about when she tries to do this with 11-aughts, after she goes through the bridge thread, she loses the beads?
Melanie, I think I know what's happening. You're going through the thread loop and then back up the beads. So what's happening is you're only catching a very small amount of your loop thread. And when you go back up, then you're actually taking the beads off. You're going back through the beads and they just fall off. So when you pull up tight, you break that little bit of thread is probably what's happening. So let me show you what that would look like, okay? So I'm going to start this row off. And one of the things that I focus on, and I've really found this over the years, that to get good at something, and when I say good, I just mean that I'm consistent and that I can kind of pick it up any old time I want to and put it down and start again, and I've got it firmly. When I put my needle through between the beads and under that thread loop, I find that if I push it between the beads, can you see how that bead popped up and open? And then I let it come up and be under the thread loop. It's better than if I try and go through here.
Because that's a thread splitter right
Yes, it is. So go through the beads. You
and
can't really
push up.
hurt them, and this will keep you from splitting the
there.
thread,
Makes sense.
right? So if I caught under just a hair of thread here, and I might think I had everything, and pulled it up tight, and I broke that thread off,
Yeah, it's hard to break, of course,
Right.
when you want it to.
right? I would end up going back through the bead like that. I'd pull it up tight, and it
And
would
then it would
pop
come
off,
off.
and there my beads are coming off. So really what you want to do is go between the bead and let it come up. And I do this automatically. I don't even think about it. I have to say it out loud while
do
we're
it.
doing it, because I really automatically do it. Okay? Hope that helps, Mel. Right? All right. So enough of these big crazy beads and loose thread, and
Let's get to the project.
let's get to the project. So laddering with the cubes is still about as easy as I was doing. It is a little
'Cause
bit
they're big.
loose because they're big and they have big holes in them. So one thing I would suggest, though, is to edit through these a little bit so that you have beads that are about the same size. You'll notice that, like these two, that's two different lengths of beads, you know? And the ladder will really show those irregularities off pretty clearly. So whatever you choose, just stick with it. And if you want, you can do this on the assembly line process, which I don't know if I've really talked about that here very much, but when I build things like a pair of earrings especially, I tend to work on alternating on from one earring to the other earring at the same time so that I have as much chance of being consistent, rather than making one and thinking that later on I'm going to be able to duplicate it exactly. Brandon's shaking her head, nodding, oh, I got that. So I'm really only making it simple on myself. If I was making a pair of shoes, I would probably do the same thing because I want them to match. I know Kate says sisters, not twins, but I want them to be as close to sisters as I can possibly
Yeah.
make. At least fraternal twins. They don't have to be
Yes.
identical twins.
Right.
They have to be at least fraternal twins. So I would build that ladder exactly the same way, with about 1.5 yards of thread. And really, when we talk about thread length in seed beading, most of the time 1.5 yards is about as much as I would ever recommend. If you use more than that, you're going to find yourself with tangles while you're doing it, and that's no fun. There's no fun in tangles, right?
That's right.
So I'm going to thread my needle. And I do that by pinching my thread and pushing the eye of the needle down onto the thread. So I'm not really threading my needle, I'm needling my thread. Oops, didn't make it, missed it. One more time. Sometimes if you have trouble with this, try a little, try running this through your lips that have a little bit of lip balm. Not lipstick, but lip balm on them. And I'm just going to pull my thread through. So this will be a harder spot to show you. I've got about 1.5 yards of thread, and I've got my needle on. And when I put my first couple of beads on here, I'm going to bring them to about middle point of the thread. So I've got quite a long tail of thread. Okay, so there's this long tail of thread down here. I'm going to push them together and go back up through bead number 1. This is very much the same thing as making a stopper bead, right? And pull them up so they sit side by side. And then you go back down bead number 2. All right? I'm going to pick up a new bead, loop around by going through number 2, back up, number 3. And see how they're a little bit loosey? That's okay. I'm just hanging on to this thread under my fingers. Oh, that might be too big of a difference in size. Let's see. That one was kind of on the small side. Nah, that'll be all right. So there really isn't a way to pull out a bead in the middle if you decide that that bead that you've gone past is the wrong size. So starting over is your only consideration, your only ability there. And the cubes, like I said, are a bit irregular. So one thing you might notice is as you're circling around making these ladders going up and down and back and forth is the direction of your thread changes each time. And that's kind of a puzzle, and it might feel, if you were doing a much longer stack, you might pick it up and notice it, but on a short stack like this, it's a little, or a short ladder like this, it's a little less visible. So here's my ladder of 7 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That one's a little bit short, but he'll be suitable. When I brought my needle and thread through here, I picked up these 2 beads, and then I looped around. I went back down, picked up another bead, and looped around. Can you notice that the direction that my needle is going is changing on every bead?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like
So it circles around, and they're going right to left. I'm going clockwise and then counterclockwise. So it's kind of an interesting kind of thing to notice, and sometimes it helps you keep kind of yourself together when you know that the next one you just went clockwise, the next one is counterclockwise. That kind of keeps you in place. Okay, stitch right through. Right on down. So this first row out the door, row number 1 on the base, is going to have more stacks than I have base beads in the row. So that's a little confusing. And when you kind of are at these points where things are a little bit different, it's the place where you want to kind of pay attention. So I'm going to do some traditional and some non-traditional moves here.
Okay, and I wanted to ask just real quick.
Sure, go
There was
for
a
it.
couple of questions about the difference. When you say that you're laddering, we're not doing like traditional,
You're not
like
laddering
ladder
like
bracelet.
we're not
laddering.
making a ladder
Right.
bracelet. No.
Is this as similar at all to square stitch, Emily? Do you know of
It is
square
a little.
stitch?
It is. I do know square stitch. It is a little similar to square stitch. Square stitch is usually done in the vertical, though. So the holes would be going the other direction.
The other direction. Okay.
Yeah, but then yes, it would be very similar to square stitch. It's actually similar to right angle weave, too.
Okay.
Because if we could imagine a bead here and a bead here, it'd be right angle weave. So that
So-
process would be. Let me pull out another
Okay.
one here, like this,
Right.
and like this. Then it would be right angle weave, right? Because our threads paths of the thread is the same.
So with this is just your base. Like when you did this here, let me put it on this side, with the brick stitch. This is just started with
One.
that base, the 1 stitch, and then you you go up this way.
Yeah,
But this, you needed a base, someplace to start.
brick
So
stitch
this was
always
your
needs
start-
a base.
But this was your starting point.
Yes, base row.
Instead of starting up top here and building down.
Yeah, you always build from the wide to the narrow.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So, but with this one, you said you started up here and
No,
built?
I built from
Oh,
here.
from here and up.
up,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I thought.
And this has the ladders. The ladder here is made up of groups of 3.
3. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So right. So so this is your base, and then you just went up with brick stitch
And down with brick
with the brick stitch. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
We're all good?
So everyone knew. Yep, we're good.
All right. So here's where things get a little bit different. Now, down here is the extra thread. I'm going to use that for the second part of the diamond. The top part of the diamond, I'm going to use up this bit of thread. You know what I didn't do is wax.
And you know what? While you're waxing, also, can you talk about this bead? Because we have
We had a run out.
We
Yes.
did, unfortunately, but also fortunately, we made
Good substitution.
a substitution. I
Yeah,
need to
can
find
you
what
grab
that,
it?
I need to find
It's on
what
the.
it
I think
is.
it's on the. the Facebook Live materials list
Okay, I'm gonna find it real quick and
on
grab
the
it.
website.
Because it's great, and I thought maybe you could actually.
Oh, you want me to work with that one?
Yeah, do
I
you
can wait.
mind?
No,
I'm
no.
gonna
that's
grab
fine.
it real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the matte metallic bronze, right?
Oh, another
Is
one of my
what it
favorites.
is.
Hmm.
2006. So we put in a couple of substitutions for these, and we'll have this other bead in soon.
And you know, like anything else in the world, sometimes we run out. And sometimes the supplier doesn't have another kilo or two to send to us.
They're not on the ship yet.
They're not off the boat yet? Oh, or they're off the boat but not still in the container. I don't know. There's some importing issue. It'll be along, for sure.
But this is a really pretty sub, and the color. So if you don't mind, Em,
No, not at all.
we could do it with these just so people will see how that different bead might look. And this is, as we say, the 11-2006, the matte metallic bronze.
Oh, can I have a little bit more?
Sure, your volcano.
I need a volcano.
There, how's that?
Very good.
I like those a lot.
Yeah.
And we also will point out the substitution that we have for this one as well.
Do we have one for that one too?
Yeah,
I
we
thought
do.
we didn't.
Melon.
It's
Oh,
the melon.
the melon. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to use my volcano method for picking up beads. So if you're freaked out by the beads being this small, don't be freaked out,
Yep, don't be freaked out.
right? I'm going to just scoot my needle through the stack, and it's going to pick up some beads as I do that. And one thing I always like to do before I take a stitch is actually look at the beads on my needle to make sure there's no oddballs. Sometimes there's a big thick one or a skinny lumpy one, and you want to get rid of that, okay? And it also makes me easier for me to count my beads. I just need 6. I'm going to scoot those other 3 off. All right? So in this case, I'm going to move into the second thread loop,
Just
scoot
like you
under it,
did.
right? Pull this up. And it's like, whoa, not sitting up like a stack. That's okay. I'm not done yet. I'm going to go up 3 beads.
Right, because this is the first 2 rows.
The first 2
First
stacks.
2 stacks, yeah.
Yeah. Pull it through, and it's still not really in the right spot. That's okay. Go down through the first group of 3, catching under that first thread loop. Pull it up, and I'm going to go back up through that second group. So that's the kind of only difference here. Everything else, and if I just pull it up nice and snug, it sits right up on top. Easy.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Pick up 3 more beads. That was a lucky scoop. And I'm going to use the second thread loop again. Okay? So this is where things begin to differ a little bit. When we're trying to use smaller beads or different shaped beads, we can either use a thread loop more often or we can skip it. Okay? So that's 1/3 of the stacks that I'm going to put across here. Okay?
It works out pretty quick.
It does. Brick stitches, it is one of my favorites. It's the first seed bead stitch that I ever learned out of Bead and Button magazine. And I had a run of sicknesses. I had a cold, I had strep throat, I kind of had everything happen to me in a run. And I just sat on my sofa with my Kleenex box, and I sat there and did this. And I learned several stitches that way just by not having an agenda and having no place to go in a hurry. I'm one of those people who hates to call in sick, and I better have something to do at home or I'm going to be unhappy.
That looks great. Look
Yeah.
at that. And so those 3, you can see they're just lining up like one little bead
Yep.
once you go back
So we
up
just
them.
treat them as if they're one
Act
little
as
bead.
if.
And you know what? I kind of like this color. I might
I do
actually
too.
like this
People are
color
saying,
better.
I know, people are saying how much they like the color. I like it too. I
It's
like
super
the
close.
high contrast.
Yeah,
a lot.
you know, I don't know. I'm gonna reserve judgment until I see the True Twos sitting on top of them. The True Twos have a lot of color in the gold. This gold color.
It's a gold AB, actually.
Yeah,
is
they
what it
have a
is.
lot of oomph going on. I kind of like the silver ones better, but so now that I'm getting close to the end, I know that I've got only a 1 thread loop bare left. I'm gonna actually count my stacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 1 bare thread loop that I'm gonna fill up with just 1 stack. And that's going to help me keep that little bit of a lantern or architectural flare hanging out to the side. Okay? And since I really can't go back and add any more to the front end, I have to kind of watch what I'm doing and make sure that I am using up the space wisely and evenly. And if your volcano gets a little flat, that's okay. Shove it all together. You need the depth of beads. I can't use beads out of a holder or in a tray or anything. This is my life now. Has to be in a volcano. Okay. So through that last one and pull it up again. Perfect. Okay. So there's the first row. That went together pretty easily. Now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to grab some True Twos.
The True Twos.
True Twos!
Looks great.
Move these guys out of the way a little bit.
I just love these earrings so much. And so, you'll show again, Emily,
Oh, yeah.
when you are doing this. We had one quick question from
Sure.
Charlene. She said, how are you moving along to the next thread bridge? So we'll just
Yeah.
point it out
Sure.
one more time.
Absolutely. So here's my loops of thread between
There's the
the
bridge.
stacks, right? So here's number 1, and since this is the beginning of my row, I want the second one. So 1, 2. Get my needle, and see how the needle goes in between the beads, and then it comes up under the thread. So this is the True Twos. So they go on in stacks of 2.
So that first thing that you put on, you're putting on the first 2 stacks.
Simultaneously.
Which is why you go to the second bridge.
Right.
Because if you went to the first bridge, the stack would be hanging off the side.
It would, and
Right,
and
it
that
wouldn't be
has
tapering.
and that has some that
Merit.
has merit and potential as well. Okay. Go underneath, back down through the first group, underneath that thread loop for the first one.
Yes.
Pull it up, and back up the
Oh,
second stack. I know those
so
True Twos.
shiny and
Those True Twos are
delightful.
delicious.
And they are just a 2 millimeter fire polished bead, you guys. The True Twos are check. They're a check bead, just like your 4 mil or your 3 mil fire polish. But I think they call them True Twos because they are truly 2 millimeter. I don't know why they're called that, but they
I think it's a T word.
are. Yeah, they're.
Yeah, and they, actually, they are. I will say, there's some variations
a
in
little
these
bit of
True Twos.
variation.
Yep. You know what? You don't happen to have a. Let me have that piece of white paper. I
do you-
just want.
yeah, here.
This happens to be. I happen to
A teaching
come upon
moment
a
right
teaching
here.
moment right here. So there's some variation in those beads. I don't care what anybody says.
Let me get that.
Oh,
really
sorry.
good.
All right, I'm moving.
Oh yeah, one's bit. You can definitely see this
Yes.
one is larger.
Uh huh.
That one's smaller.
There is some variation in these beads. I don't care how true to two these were supposed to be called, but there is some variation there that is pretty apparent when you start looking at these one at a time.
And especially when you're stitching like this, if you're just stringing, it doesn't make as much difference.
Right.
But when you're stitching like this, it can make a
Yeah.
difference.
And I'm actually going to not worry too much about that.
Uh-huh.
But there's even difference in the diameter.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's
Right?
what I can see. Yeah. So maybe they're not so true after all.
Right.
Yes. So what Charlene was
My next
observing, she was saying, so essentially going in, you're decreasing up the stack.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I don't have to worry about counting or
Right.
anything like that. Just use up all the thread loops as you go across and you'll be decreased. Okay. I want to get to those bugles. That's my goal.
Yes, the bugles.
Yep, that's my goal.
Yes. Hi, Isabel from Sweden. Welcome. It's great to have you.
You know, one of the things
And
you
our
might
international bead table.
might be kind of fun to do with these True Twos is to use them in an illusion necklace or floating necklace.
Oh, I wonder why you're bringing that up, Emily
I don't
Miller.
know. We've been talking about floats, and I don't mean root beer, although I love a root beer float.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about floats.
And I think
In
these
a
would be a
little bit.
really fun bead because the hole is nice and even.
Mm-hmm.
You know, gemstone beads are beautiful, but their irregularity can be frustrating, especially the irregularity in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
And our Dakota stones that we get are very even,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still a process. You know, you never can't write that off. That you have to look at the hole and really observe what's happening.
Gosh, the stitch with the true twos are kind of making me a little crazy.
I
how
know,
much
it's
I
kind of
love
beautiful,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like I said, working with something that we haven't played with much before is kind of exciting, and coming up with something new and interesting, and putting
Your own spin.
my own spin
Well,
on
wait
it.
till we see, Janice has been playing. We're getting some new beads coming in. We're getting some dragon scale beads, which are going to be debuting really shortly. And we're getting some O beads, which are going to be debuting further along in August. And you guys, wait till you see what Janice has made with the O beads. I'm working with the dragon scales, and I think they're nice. But the O beads, it's kind of exciting. They're kind of fun. So I'm just teasing you with it a little bit.
So the next row is going to be our bugles, and so that's that next group, and these bugles that we picked have a matte metallic surface on them. This is Tokyo matte metallic khaki iris in a color.
35. I recognize it.
Brandon, thank you. Matte metallic khaki iris. You know, the matte metallics often have quite a bit of variation in the tube. So I just pick it up irregularly. I don't worry about it. I don't want to try and sort through those beads either. Thank you. I'm just going to pick up beads that I see and like.
And
Right?
did we say this? Are these 5 mils? What are these?
That's a number 2 bugle.
Number 2.
hmm
And they are, I'll just tell you.
So I've got 2 bugles. I love it when they have this little bit of variation of color
Yeah.
around the hole. It's pretty subtle, but I really like it.
Yeah, I like them too.
And these are going to look really funny initially when I put them on. They look a little oddball, you know,
Pardon me.
but I treat them exactly the same as I treat the other beads. This is always a little challenging
It
getting
was
this
really
focal
clever, I
distance.
thought, of you to just go for it and put a bugle. And again, we were talking a little bit earlier about the kind of negative shape that these earrings kind of create. It really is pronounced with this bugle. It adds a lot of eye interest, I think.
Well, this project kind of had multiple things going on in it, and one of the things was to use some other beads we hadn't used before. But traditionally, if you see a Native American made earring, they will often use the bugle as the ladder.
Right.
And
right,
so
the
that's
ladder.
sort of
right, that's right.
It's related to the fact they used to use porcupine quills a lot for that. And so putting it in a different place is just interesting, and it gives you some new spin on things, right? So I think it's well worth trying a bead in a different bead in a usual place.
No, I love it. And I'm also putting you guys in the comments. You can see, I'm putting the Emily's chart up there. It's earlier in the comments as well, but I'm putting it here. I'm going to put it actually just here. Bear with me. I've got to grab the link one more time.
What was the project for the bracelets? We've been getting
Brick stitch bracelets
Brick stitch bracelet. All
goes way back in the Facebook Lives.
from Facebook Lives. It was a Facebook Live. I was
Might have been
away.
my first one.
I was away.
Who did I teach it to?
Maybe Gracie back in the day.
Might have been.
I might have been. So it may have been around August because I was probably at Bead Fest.
I do believe that was Grace.
Yeah, I think you're right. So there's my almost first stack, or first pyramid. And then I'm going to grab some melons.
And yeah, 3mm cubes could be used in this project, right?
Yeah.
The,
Oh, sure.
The,
sure.
The cubes.
That's what these are,
That's
right?
what these guys.
Yeah.
These guys are all the 3 mils. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of our Facebook Lives, you guys, are archived. They never go away. So they are all on.
You know what?
If you go
I think
to,
I grabbed the wrong.
What did you need? What can
did
I grab for you?
I grabbed the wrong color of melons. Where's the right color of melons?
That's the replacement.
No, it's not the replacement.
I'll
Should
get
be
'em.
over there.
I thought that was.
No, let me get them for you. I don't know.
Man, things disappeared today.
They
There was
did.
like,
Let me get them for you. Do you have
um,
them either?
I think I have them here. No, they're in here.
You got them.
Yep. It's the wrong color melon.
Wrong melon. Is it,
There it is.
There it is. There's the melons. Melon emergency averted. You can find all of our Facebook Live projects if you go to our website, beadshop.com, and you click on the top row. You see a little link to Facebook Live. You go there, and all of our Facebook Lives back to our very, very first one are all archived there. So you can kind of scroll through and see all of those. And I know that episode notes exist for those as
And
well.
charts, I think.
And charts and stuff. So you can go ahead, and there'll be links to the episode notes on that page, to the charts, all stuff like that. So it'll be really easy for you to find.
So here's where things could get a little interesting too. This next row is I'm changing bead size. So I really only have room for about 3 beads, which means that I'm not going to use every thread loop
Okay.
in my arsenal here. And I'm actually going to move over to about the 3rd thread loop. Okay. How did I determine this? Which one I was going to use? It was a little
Practice.
trial and error.
Right.
Right? So I pull it through just like we do before.
And it's because those melons, yeah, like you said,
They're
they're
fat.
a little wider. Yeah.
Plump. Plump melons. Right? And I'm treating them exactly now. And I went through the 2nd thread loop to just get those guys
Tightened up.
tightened up. Look at that.
There you have it.
Because now I have room for just one more.
Right.
Right? That was really all the melons I was going to have room for on this row. I might have been able to squeeze 4 in there, but they would have been not as pyramidy.
Yeah, a little wonky. And as always, for a lot of our projects, especially our Facebook Live projects, we also do a recipe. So if you go to the Facebook Live page and you click on lantern earrings, you're going to see Shanghai Lantern, which is the blue colorway, Tokyo Lantern, which is the colorway that Emily is working with, and then you're going to see the recipe. So it's a great way if you want to do your own lantern, you just follow that recipe and plug in what you like.
So the next row of melons is going down to 2.
Just 2.
Naturally decreasing, just as Brick Stitch likes to do. Right. And so I just treat these 2, even though they're just the 2, I just treat them like they're the first 2 in the row. Okay. And back up again.
Now it's time to add the loop for your ear wire,
Yep.
right?
And I'm going to use just 3 seed beads, making a picot here. And I'm just going to pass my needle down, maybe through my melons.
There's the
That's
picot.
just enough room to get an ear wire in there. Okay? And I'm going to bury my tail of my thread. So a lot of seed bead stitches don't use knots. And that might seem a little alarming. Everybody take it easy.
Take a breath, everybody.
Take a breath, everybody. What we need to do is just have a couple of changes of direction with the thread. And that's what I mean by burying my thread. Okay? I'm getting rid of the tail of the thread by hiding it in the beads. And one thing I found that's nice about this little group of beads that we're working with, that to pass through those cubes makes life really easy and gives you a place to aim for. So I'm aiming down into my cubes, and then I'm going back up through my first stack, and having that little change of directions a couple of times, and I'm good.
It really looks great, and someone also just commented how much they like the color contrast. I do too. I like that bronze seed bead a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice.
And I'm going to bring my needle and thread out in the middle of a stack.
Mm.
I have found over the years that if I have my thread on an edge and I go to trim it, it always flapping out there.
Right, comes out.
And I can't get rid of
Yeah.
it. I can't trim it close enough. So I'm going to pull on my thread,
Yeah, cut it
and-
under tension.
cut it with a little tension, and then my thread's gone,
It's good to go.
right? And since I didn't have to change threads anywhere along the way, here's my other thread.
Mm-hmm. There it is. Now you're ready to go.
Now I'm ready to go on the bottom. So the bottom is same.
Nice.
Do it again. Lather, rinse, repeat. My favorite.
And I also wanted to mention this is the seed bead cube. It's the 4. It's the 4 mil. It's the SB4, not the SB3.
Oh, sorry.
So you could
Yeah.
use, but you could use a small. It
Sure.
doesn't matter. You
No.
would just, Cindy, make this as long. You use 8
Yeah.
instead. So there's not a real. There's no hard fast rule there.
Or if
for
you
this.
use 7 of the smaller cube,
Uh-huh.
you might only have 8 here.
Right. 8 rows up top.
The first row would be 8 stacks.
8 stacks.
Right. And then these would all just be shorter by 1 bead. Yeah, but you'd be fine.
Yeah. It's
Right.
cool.
So now I would repeat down until I had gotten to the melon, or to the melon stage. So I'd finish the bugle, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the bottom. This is the bottom half.
Right, and you do the reverse.
Finish it right down to the bugle, and then I'm ready to add my fringe.
Now, while this is like this, before we do fringe,
Mm-hmm.
because I know you're ready to get to fringe, but wouldn't this be an
Yes.
incredible topper
Yes, it would.
for one of your brick stitch bracelets?
Mhm.
Because you know me, I like fancy pants.
You know what I would do?
This has a very Egyptian kind of feel.
Oh,
to it,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
Doesn't
yeah.
it have a very deco? Very. I'm wearing that to the. I don't know
To
the
Met Ball-
Pantages.
the Met Ball.
The Pantages Theater.
I would actually do more bugle rows because it would give you
That's
a
what
little
I was
bit
just
more
thinking.
length.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would throw in. And
Actually-
maybe even. you could
Actually,
do
I think
bugle
I would
rows
do
there.
this.
Yeah, and then
Then yeah,
string.
yeah.
But it would also. This would be really cool as the bookends for. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
something. It's really. I love this mashup of beads. I love them.
Yeah. It's
Love
been
them.
really fun.
Okay, sorry. I just had to go there for a second. Let me put all this back so Emily's back on track with her fringe.
Get out of my way.
I know. I just can't help it. I love them so much.
So I'm going to pull off about, maybe about a yard of thread at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the KO thread tends to have a little bit of what I like to affectionately call Shirley Temple curls. Those ringlets that Shirley Temple used to have.
Right?
If you give it a little tug, those relax. And sometimes those curls, I have a suspicion, are what lend themselves to tangling. And so that little bit of relaxed pull
Right, a little-
is not so, it's helpful.
A little zen for your thread.
A little zen for your thread.
I love this darker. I like the contrast
I
of it.
think, you know what, I like it. I think I like the original. That's my first choice.
So now you're just going to do the reverse.
Well, no, I'm not actually going to do this part because
Right,
I've
but
already
you
done
would.
it.
But you would, right?
Yeah,
You do the
yeah,
reverse.
absolutely.
We're ending here, and now we're going to do the tassels.
Now I'm going to do that fringy stuff. Okay. You know what, Kate? Will you
What do you
look
need
in
me to
there?
do?
I need. Oh no, I don't. Yes, I do. I need a number 12 needle.
Okay.
Normally, what I do is use a number 12. I'm working with a 10 here, and it will not go through my gemstones. I can tell you right now.
There's a 10. There's a 10. You need a 12. Here's one.
Perfect.
There you go. If I can.
You got it? Perfect. You know, if you have to travel with your needles and thread, I like to use a little bit of paper, and I just cut whatever kind of notebook paper I happen to have around. and I put a little slit on each side, and I wind my thread around it so that I don't get a tangle. There's nothing less fun than getting tangles out of thread, I think.
I
It's
agree.
satisfying, but it's not really that much fun. And, you know, these beeswax blocks, they last forever.
Yeah.
And one thing you can do if you want to have a little traveling kit with you is take a heavy knife. You can cut this into little pieces.
Oh, yeah.
So that you can just take a smaller
You have a little
chunk.
piece of it.
Since we've talked, I don't know, I have talked a lot lately about traveling and having my beads with me. So, back to the charts.
Kate, you wore those earrings earlier. Were they heavy at all?
Yeah,
or-
no, we mentioned a little bit earlier. They are pretty light, so they're
Comfortable.
not heavy. Very comfortable. And so you're going to use our
Yeah. So when I start a fringe, I'm going to bury a new thread up in the beadwork, and the fringe is going to just come straight out of the bugle bead. Okay, and I'm going to bring my needle out, stack a group of 3 seed beads, a true 2, 3 seed beads, a true 2, 3 seed beads, a true 2, a bugle, 1 true 2, and then I bring the daisy spacers in, the melons, the daisy spacer again, seed bead, true 2, and here's my gemstone. All right. So I did this in a stack here along this way. It's not perfectly matching up, but this is just so that you can read straight down it and pick up as you
and
go
see
along.
what it is.
Yeah.
Now the I'm going to move this up
Sure.
just a little bit. This bottom row, instead of 2 millimeter, you could also end it with a picot,
You could also use it ended with a true 2.
right? Or
Right.
a tutu or anything.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
And this is an easier way, I think, to look at charts where you're kind of doing, you not have to try to track through the whole thing. It's broken up a little bit. So to bury a new thread, one thing I like to think about is the direction that my thread is going to ultimately go. And what I'm going to do is actually start in that direction, and then I have to loop around to get myself kind of tightened up. All right? So I'm going to bring my needle right into a little group of stacks here. Could be any one you choose. This just happened to be the one I did. And I'm going through two rows.
2 rows.
And I'm going to pull it up till there's almost no tail. I'm just going to have that much to trim off. I'm going to go up a couple of stacks.
And we're still using KO.
Yep. And I did choose some different colors of KO for this particular one. I do think it's nice with Brick Stitch that you really are mindful of your thread colors. You may see it in where the thread loops are happening, and that can really be an influence. All right. So one way to test on how snug you are, or if you're tight enough, is once you've got it woven in, does the tail move? Tail's still moving. So I'm going to
You gotta
go.
lock it in one more time.
I've got to go one more time, and I think when I go through this time and come out at the bugle bead, I think I'll be in good shape. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty good. And I'm going to come out of the bugle, and since that tail is going to be kind of in the way, I can take the time and cut it off. Okay. So the fringe again is a case of lather, rinse, repeat. And since I've already got all my beads out, it's easy to kind of pick them up. And again, using my volcano technique, pick up my beads as I go along. You know, the fringe is always to me the fun part, and it's when I do the textured. We've done the textured fringe bracelet a few times, and it's it really makes me feel like I just got to eat dessert first. You know, it was really the most fun and the least amount of hard work to kind of make that happen.
And the fringe that you're doing, it's all the same. You're
Yes.
not.
You could, since we're working on, I think we have an odd number of bugles. I think we have 7 here. We could make them longer in the center if you wanted to, pretty easily. It's a nice nice to have an odd number because it sort of gives you that odd is even sort of feel to it. And one more seed bead, one more true two, and my gemstone bead. Here's another tip. I know we talk about a lot of things on Facebook, the group, and I see folks talking about their stash and how they're storing their pieces. You know, when I store beads that come on a strand, which is mostly gemstones or pearls come on a strand these days, I actually leave it on the strand as long as possible. I know you're a cutter-upper
I am a
because you like to have it sort of
I do.
spilled out.
I do.
But if I have a long strand and I'm only using some, I actually don't take it off the strand because it's easier to store it this
right.
way.
Yeah, because
And
they're so small.
They're so small.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right?
But you could get a little, you know, we have those great little containers.
It's true.
We have a
It's
lot of
true.
fun little containers. Now, Emily, real quick before you're going back up, we're continuing to use the KO. A couple of people are asking about Fireline. Did you mention
yeah.
earlier about Fireline?
No, you could use Fireline
Yeah,
if you want
you could. Yeah.
You know,
It would be a little stiffer, I think, but I
Yeah.
think it would sit fine.
Yeah.
I think.
Fireline doesn't come in as many colors, and it's expensive as well. KO's a little less expensive, and I don't feel like I really need the durability here of Fireline, or the pullability, the
Yeah.
strength of it.
And the drape of the KO, as it's mentioned in the
Yes.
comments,
For fringe
really
is a little
makes
nicer.
this fringe.
Yep.
Yeah, really
And
makes
somebody
this
was
fringe
asking
nice.
about the color as well. So using the color really does.
I think so. Yeah.
does.
If you have a transparent bead too, thread color is important. I like to match up because I always feel like these thread loops are something that are visible occasionally, depending on what you're doing and where your beads are.
Right.
You do
can
see
see the
the
thread
thread.
sometimes.
So I want to pick a color that's appropriate. Dark gray is a really good universal. Mauve, a thread mauve-y color, kind of like that kind of pinkish one, is a good choice. The dark brown works really nicely. You know, there are a few. If you're doing golds, use the gold thread, or the lighter yellow one. Any of those colors are really nice to have around.
Nice. Well, let's go ahead and finish up this leg.
Okay, so here's my fringe all stacked in place with my little gemstone at the bottom, and my needle went right through it. It was very easy. I'm gonna.
Brandon, are we in frame?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I need to move up a little bit.
No, we're okay.
So to finish a fringe, and so this is just like textured fringe, I actually skip the bead at the bottom. So you could do a picot of 3 if you wanted here. I'm just going to skip that bead at the bottom, and I'm going to bring my needle and thread back up through the beads. It's pretty rare that I can get through the whole thing at one go, because these are a fairly long fringe. So it's okay to take it in a couple of steps, except clear away your messy thread from your neighborhood there. Okay. And what I want to make sure is I'm going through all the beads rather than skipping any. That's frustrating. All right. And I like to actually pull it up before I go through the bugle bead again. This gives me a chance that if I've made an error or there's some mistake along here, I have a chance to fix it. So I'm going to just pinch hold of my very last bead, and I'm going to pull my thread up. And that's going to pull my fringe up to my bugle. Now, fringe is kind of a thing. It's something that you would like to have be flexible, but you don't really want to have a big gap of thread at the base of your piece. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. You want to be flexible, but you also don't want it to have a big gap opening up there. So just be mindful of that. And it's a little, like I said, it's some of those little bit of balancing acts. So I'm going to go through my bugle bead again. Come right out the top of it. So this is the first bugle bead in the row. Man, I didn't do a good job of clearing the thread out of my area. And before I start my next fringe, I have to go down through the next bugle bead. Okay?
Just to show you.
Yeah, I'm going to just take a little pause here. Okay? And then I'm going to move right along to making the very next fringe. And that's all I have to do. Lather, rinse, repeat,
That's
lather,
it,
rinse,
going
repeat.
all the way across.
Would you mind handing me a plier, a chain
I
nose plier?
would not
please?
mind at all. There you go.
Because the last fun step of all of these, of course, is to put the ear wire on. If you put the ear wire on when you are working on it, I promise you, you will spend a lot of time untangling your threads. So wait till the very end. I just open up the ear wire as normal, slip it through that little picot, and pull it up so that it's closed. And that would be the last step.
That looks great. Look at that ear wire.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it literally looks good in that smaller
Mhm.
picot.
It does.
For
Looks
sure.
great. And then, as we said, you could lay out all of your,
You could make your fringes be longer.
yeah, you could lay things out and kind of play around with what you're doing. You could also make this fringe a lot shorter, you know.
Sure.
Because do remember, you guys, that Emily made this kind of other lantern one with just some small things. You could, I don't know, toss a briolet on the bottom.
Sure. This
don't
could
know.
have a much smaller fringe.
Mhm.
You know what I thought about after the fact was
Mm-hmm.
those little small points, the brass
Oh,
points.
I love small points. One of my
Right?
favorites.
So we could taper those down a little
Mhm.
bit and have a small point hanging down a little lower.
Mhm. It would be really good.
That would be really pretty.
Yeah, it would be pretty.
Um,
And we have such really nice semi-precious briolets that would work. Would be great. So there's a lot to do here with this. Well, I love all this chit chat about kits and about
Oh, yeah.
colorways and all kinds of stuff that have been going on with this. But Emily, we have a fun giveaway today. Let's kind
I
of
know.
put things back together here.
Yep, we've
And
gotta
let's
wrap this
share-
up.
Yep, we've got to wrap things up because it's about that time. So let's go ahead.
Oh, I want to share my little
yeah, and I want you to
event
share
that
your story.
my story that I
yeah,
had this week.
and because we have been talking about kits and stuff as
Yep,
well. So
yep.
let's move the camera back to
Okay.
Brandon. There we go. Mind the kind of camera kind of bumping around here, you guys.
Doing our best.
All right, to make it nice and even for you. We do our best here. Not only can we bead, we can also film and
So,
put up shelves and all kinds of stuff.
oh, we're multitaskers.
We are multitasking. So yes, you had when you guys are watching this on replay, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you may not be able to see all of the great comments that were going on today. And people were talking about kits and wanting this in a kit and wanting different colorways and stuff. And you had, I know it's hard sometimes to use the recipe or go your own colorway
I
and
think
stuff.
I think that we all naturally
I'm gonna put these
kind
on.
of doubt ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, color-wise.
Color-wise,
sometimes.
well, I think we doubt ourselves
I'm gonna put these on.
in our just in our vision,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have a vision of something, and
Right.
it's hard to express it, maybe.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that we
Mhm.
envision it correctly,
Mhm.
and have what we do kind of come out the way we expect.
Right, right. The vision in my head
Right.
matches whatever's gonna happen.
And so, when we see something that's already made, or someone's already picked out the colors,
Mhm.
I
I'm
don't have
in.
to worry about my vision.
Yeah, right. I'm in.
I can make it look just like
Yeah.
that.
And so you had that experience.
Yeah,
this
I was
weekend.
I was this weekend. I was on a little road trip with my husband, and I managed to make it go by a yarn store.
Yes, no surprise there.
He had no idea. I said, let's eat lunch right here, and when we're done with lunch, there's a little yarn store I want to walk around to."
Right.
So he was like, "Okay." So we went to this yarn store, and I told myself, I don't need another ball of yarn.
Ever.
I got 2 for my birthday.
From,
This one.
I wonder who.
Jana sent me yarn. I don't know
Yes,
what I'm going to do with all
right,
this yarn.
all this yarn.
And I wandered through, and I saw this really attractive small shawl.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, wow, that's really beautiful. Oh, that yarn is so soft." And I looked at all the colors, and the one shawl was already made in this
In that colorway.
orange
Yeah.
red color. And I said, "I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
I don't need it, but I'm getting it." And then I went to the counter, and I said, "May I have the pattern?" And I want this other pattern too. And
But it was your visual that
the
prompted you.
the visual of the finished thing really prompted me, and I did consider the other colors,
Mhm.
but I did love this color
Mhm.
as well. And I had to kind of say to myself, is it the color? Is it the pattern? What is it that you
Mhm.
like? And I kind of liked both things.
Mhm.
I think that this is something I will do multiple times, and I have some other yarn.
So you'll
Thank you very
branch
much.
out. Yeah.
And I will make some other colorways of this.
Mhm.
But I think that first one.
Mhm.
So I totally understand when you guys see something and you see the kit, or not the kit, but the collection or the recipe,
Right.
wanting to replicate that. But I also want to encourage you to trust your instincts.
Mhm.
And if you don't love these gold tutus,
don't use them.
don't use them.
Yeah.
Use something that you like. Pick
Mhm.
out a color that you like.
Yeah, so you can follow the recipe, you can follow the colorways that we've done. And I also, when we design these pieces, we're usually kind of in this together and we're looking at the different colorways together, we're doing different things together. But like with these, I'm like, oh, I want this as a kit. I'm gonna go right to the wall and just
I'm gonna make
use
this.
these. I'm gonna make this. So yeah, it's really cool that
It was so
we can kind of
interesting
look
that I
different
really
ways
had
for
that moment, that same
of
exact moment.
Our bead ladies and bead gentlemen, it
We
flashed
understand
right in your
you.
head.
Yeah,
get
we
you.
understand you.
We
and
so get you.
We get you.
Yes. So
So.
on that note, we have a couple of things relating to a new colorway. One, and I'm going to link it right in the comments right now, for our giveaway today. If I can find, I thought I had the link up here, so I have to find it. Drea went ahead and did a quick blog post for the raffle that we're going to be doing, and I just linked it right in the comments. So today's giveaway, Emily, you chose a new colorway.
I did.
Right, and we're calling it, what did we call it? We called it Barcelona Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so today is July 18th.
Mm-hmm.
I just linked it in the comments so you can see it at our blog, The Bead Table. And so the Barcelona colorway is really beautiful.
It really
we don't have a
is.
lot of time, but
Okay.
you can kind of
Can I pull
talk
out a
it
couple
out.
of colors?
Yeah, talk
Okay.
it out.
So I went with sort of a metallic magenta-y purple
I'm going to hold them up here too
Okay.
a little bit.
colorway.
Yeah.
There's the California Gold Rush
Mm-hmm.
True Twos,
Mm-hmm.
the 410 FR in the 11s. This
Oh,
beautiful kind of
that
claret
bugle,
colored bugle, the
And the
shiny
cube.
metallic.
Mm-hmm.
The
The SB3 462.
Yeah.
It's the Bugle 2005, and then this color here is the 401 FR, and they're all listed, as we
Yep.
said, you guys, over
the
on the blog.
elderberry.
The
melon.
metallic gold iris, the opaque mauve AB, matte metallic dark raspberry, crystal California Gold Rush on these True Twos.
And pink opal
Yes.
for your little babies
Yes.
at the bottom.
And we use the Pacifica elderberry.
And to really push the color envelope a little bit, I picked
Yeah.
copper
Copper,
daisy spacers,
daisy spacers.
red thread,
That's right, red KO.
and gold
And the
filled
gold.
air wires.
The gold filler.
And you get 2 packs of True Twos.
right, because you need two.
Because you need to.
And needles.
Needles, just because, you
Oh,
can't
it's
ever
all
have
that
enough
way.
needles.
Right?
I always worry, I'm what's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
when we run out of needles. What happens? So I always like to have a needle. And it's in an organza bag.
Mm-hmm. And it's in, as I say, the link to that colorway is already up on our blog. But if you make an order today, July 18th, it's Wednesday, and you make an order of any size, and before about 1 p.m., maybe a little bit after, since it's about 12:08 here in Redwood City, California, and you write in the notes Emily's Choice, we are going to randomly pick a winner from those orders,
We'll spin the wheel.
and we'll toss in your Emily put together kit. I'm going to give you that, and if you grabbed your newsletters this morning, and even if you didn't, we can give you, if you add in your coupon box, Emily20, today is a store-wide. We will knock 20% off store-wide. So Emily20 in your orders, Emily's Choice in your shipping notes for the drawing.
And who's
And
that?
there's somebody to pass over, I think, isn't there?
Who just
let
woke
me,
up?
Let me grab him. Let me grab this baby. He's
awake.
not awake. And we know you. Oh, somebody's purring. Big
Up a
purrs. There he
He's,
is.
yeah.
Big purrs.
He's getting so
So
big.
we thought we would bring him on. Oh, there he is. Look, can you see yourself? He's looking at the computer, looking at himself. Look at him. He's like, there I am. Look how handsome I am. There
he's
he
like
is.
he's sleeping so hard
There's our
because he's
voice.
growing.
Yeah, he's growing
He
so much.
sleeps
Look at this
real
tail.
hard.
Look at this tail. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Big cattail. There he is. Well, here he is. And so let's move those so everybody can see them one more time. Always time for commerce.
Shipping notes.
Shipping notes and
Discounts.
your discount.
Mhm.
So if you, that discount is good until midnight tonight, July 18th. Our giveaway, unfortunately, is only good until 1 o'clock today, our raffle drawing. So if you make your order at 1 o'clock or thereabouts on today, July 18th, we'll put you in the running for the raffle.
Who's a sleepy kitty?
Yeah, who's a sleepy? Yes,
sleepy?
there he is.
Yeah.
All right. And you guys were asking about my necklace. That is next week's Facebook Live. We have some brand new stuff that we're doing. We're getting in Griffin Silk. We have wonderful end tips. We have bullion. We have all kinds of stuff that we're sharing with you. So join me for Facebook Live. Well, us.
Us.
But
The dynamic duo.
The dynamic duo. But I'm going to be nodding up a storm, and we have Alfred's all. Wait, what is that? I'm going to go. I'm going to go.
I do want to
So-
say that they noticed immediately. Like we panned back to you and immediately, what's the necklace? I wanted
Right?
so
They
it was
wanted
just
the
like
necklace.
right on
That's
top of
right.
it.
Well,
Sweet
Alfie and Emily and I and Brandon and Janice and the whole Bead Shop crew will be back with you next week, and I will see you Friday on Free Tip Friday for something fun. What it is, I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know.
I know what it's going to be.
Yeah, Emily already has it in her mind.
Yeah.
All right, this kid needs to get fed. So do we. We'll talk to you soon.
See you next week, guys.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye bye.
Who's a little monster?
Monster.
It was a monster.
Monster, you're a monster.
Monster.